All hail the power of Jesus' name, let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all.
Welcome everybody to the Tag Your It podcast, and man, I switched the position of the camera so that we can get all three of us in here. Yes. And now it doesn't look like I'm looking at the camera, but I am looking at the screen, making sure everybody's fitting in. So anyway, I am Ray,
and I am Dave,
and we have who in the studio with us?
Jenny Schulze.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. And I mean, this is sort of short notice. We gave it a week, but we were talking about the Equality Act last time on that show, and we had that envisioned. And then Dave thought of you and was like, "Hey, let's bring in Jenny to the mix to talk about really sort of a particular in the whole idea of and what's going on with the Equality Act." So thank you. Welcome to my home, and glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, Jenny, I had you in classes at Southwest Baptist University. I don't think I had any classes with your husband, but I remember him walking around campus since he's a 7 foot tall guy.
Yes.
And easy for me to see. You know, I'm so low, I'm looking way up, but he's
everyone looks up to him though. So no, everyone remembers my husband Chris for sure. He's hard to forget, a 7-footer.
That is correct. But we had classes together. We had communication theory together at Southwest Baptist University. And
we did.
So I was kind of reintroduced to you because I was on Facebook and I saw this hashtag Save Girls Sports Missouri, and you looked real familiar, and I joined that group, and next thing you know, I see you testifying before the House committee. And so before I jump into that narrative, how about you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I don't want to tell the whole story because you're probably much better at telling who you are than I am, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in Save Girls Sports Missouri.
Absolutely. So I'm not used to talking about myself. You know, I'm a mom, so that comes second. But I'm a native Missourian. I grew up in Republic, Missouri, graduated there. I went to SBU on a full-ride basketball scholarship back in 2002, what year is that about the time you started there?
I got there in 2003.
Okay, yeah.
But I had a weird time because I went and did military stuff.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So anyway, ended up at SBU. I've always been interested in politics. My grandpa was actually a U.S. congressman, so I've kind of always been around it. Always been at the dinner table, everything else. And then I met my husband, who also played at SBU, and on a full-ride scholarship. So we both experienced debt-free after college due to...
Wow, praise God.
Yeah, praise God. Yeah, due to sports. So we have that to thank for it. And yeah, we have 2 little girls, Maylee and Gracie, and they are both into sports. I've told them I don't really care if you're into sports or not. Just find something that you love to do and get after it. So we coach a lot of teams. COVID kind of put a damper on some of the sports around here, but we're back into that now. But yeah, this issue kind of combines a lot of my passions. So my girls being number one, and sports and politics. So they all kind of have merged now into this, and it's definitely not anything I ever thought I would have to be fighting for. My girls playing against fellow females, but it's here, and kind of got to step up to the plate.
So the reason that Save Girls Sports Missouri started is because you recognize that there was a problem. You have an experience in sports. It is how you paid for college.
Right.
So sports is incredibly important to you and to your husband. It has been a blessing to you. So why is sports, and particularly women's sports, such an important formative thing for you? You know, how did that shape you? Because I imagine that's what you're wanting to protect.
Right.
So why is it such a core central thing, and how did it shape your life?
So the way that this issue even was brought up to me was whenever President Biden was elected on day one, he had an executive order that basically gutted women's sports, just totally eviscerated it and made it to where transgender females, which is biological males that are identifying as female, can play in women's sports. It did not say anything about forcing them to take hormone therapy or gender reassignment surgery, nothing. It was just saying they should have the right to play wherever they identify. And then after doing a little more research, the Missouri State High School Athletic Association actually has been allowing this since back in, I believe, 2012. And they have more guidelines as far as, the hormone therapy and all that. They have to be on hormones for a year, I believe. But so honestly, it was happening and I didn't have any idea. And so I was really shocked by that. And then actually, I'm pretty outspoken on social media. I had a former grade school teacher basically kind of say, quit whining about it. What are you going to do? So that I was fired up anyway, but that kind of made me even a little bit more fired up where I was like, you know what? This is going to affect little girls everywhere and somebody has to do something. So
It says that the transgender participation policy was passed June of 2012.
Yeah.
And revised in 2019.
Right.
So this is something that was kind of flying under the radar, even in 2012, because I personally had never heard about the issue until the Obergefell ruling. And then the day after that, there begins this transgender, what I would say is revolution, because it really is a revolt against God's designed order. So there's this incredibly important component of who you are and even who your husband is when it comes to shaping your character through sports. And again, I would imagine part of the reason you met your husband was even because of your participation in sports. So you got a scholarship to a school. He got a scholarship to a school. You meet him because you're both athletic. That is key to you. Now you're hearing about men who are participating and competing against women. It turns on an alert. Someone challenges you, do something. I imagine your competitive nature drives in. But why is it so important that women, I would say, have an equal playing field? Because this seems to be, in my mind, there is no, and as I receiving medical hormone treatment, males are not required to take a hormone blocker in order to compete with females. If I've read that correctly, and that was just a quick scan.
Right. So I think if they are supposed to take them if there is no other sport for them to play. So there's two different parts to that, to the mission statement, But yes, and many of them spoke at the House Emerging Issues committee meeting that I did as well. But I mean, for me I knew that it was time to speak out because obviously being married to a 7-foot man that weighs, as I told the House committee, close to 300 pounds. I'm 5'10". We played the exact same position in college. And to me, I'm just like, if I would have had to go up against him, we play one-on-one. I might be able to beat him a horse, Set shooting, that's one thing. But posting up, no, I'd get my tail handed to me. So to me, it was just so obvious of, the biological differences and the unfairness. Part of what I love about sports is, you're working together as a team for a common goal. I think it's amazing for either gender, boys or girls, as long as they're playing with their gender. I mean, but whenever you get a group of girls together, formative age, all my best memories growing up of sport are the best memories I have. So
you were if I remember it, SBU's basketball team while you were there was really good. Female basketball team was really good. Am I correct in that?
We were good. We were good. I don't know. There were better area teams than us probably, but yeah we were good.
But you got into some Division II tournaments that you did well in. If you don't mind, give me
So my time at SBU, I believe all three years we had winning seasons. It's kind of I've slept since then, but what I remember most about my time at SBU playing on a team was just the friendships that I made with the other girls, and we're still some of us good friends to this day, and they're all. From what I know, they're all behind me 100% on
Excellent,
this. You know, I've
excellent.
received a lot of support across the board. What is disappointing is just the current political climate we have. People are almost afraid to be in support of something like this because they are making it so anti-trans, and that's not my goal at all. I am totally pro-women. And there is nothing about this bill that is not pro-women. And I feel like that is what happens in some of these fights is they try to turn the narrative completely around, you know. And this is definitely a pro-women issue, 100% for me.
So there's a straw man that is being made, or what I would say in logic, we have made either or thinking, right?
Right.
It is a fallacious argument to say that nope, it's either this or that. Either you're anti-trans or you're pro-trans.
Right.
And this is actually saying no. The real argument is I'm pro-women's sports.
Right.
Yeah, and here's the idea, and I think I was because I was watched a little bit of you addressing, a government official or government Congress here, and I don't know the specifics of it anyway, but they want to take this epithet and call you a transphobe, whenever it's actually you do have a real issue that it's actually a biological issue.
Right.
And I think you talked about in wrestling how somebody got their skull smashed in because they were like it was a woman wrestling.
That may have been boxing
or something like that. Yeah, tell us a little bit about
it's
that.
just happening in so many different sports. I know in Connecticut they've had issues with track and field. You know, 2 transgender females were taking the top 2 spots on the podium, and that affects everybody down the line, even for college scholarships. And I don't think people realize that it's going to affect the people that's their ticket to college.
Yeah.
If you're in a family that wouldn't be able to afford to send you, this is going to affect you because it's just the trickle-down effect. And once this becomes a bigger deal, like, obviously it's been going on since 2012 and none of us knew it, right?
Yeah.
Well, as soon as it becomes a big deal where there are like places like Connecticut, those situations all over the country, it's gonna hurt females all over.
Yeah, so it's not being afraid of the transgender person for their transgenderism.
No.
It's being afraid of, like I said, getting your head smashed in.
Yeah.
Like a physical fear
Right.
of being in physical pain.
Right.
And so, that's sad that, because what I've heard already, if we're going to take the narrative and you as a woman getting told that, what can you do about it?
Right.
Now, utilizing their narrative, I'm a woman? What can I'm not empowered. So we can play this game.
Right.
But the thing is, we don't want to play this game. We want to be lawful. We want to be rational. We want to be compassionate and show that we're not against the person because we know who they are. God has revealed that they are a person in need of a savior, and that you as a Christian are called to bring those two things to bear on each other, to go, I love you, and I don't want to see this for you. But I also don't want to get other people getting hurt. That's another, there's so many love your neighbors here.
Right.
That can't work out because of the absurdity that's going on.
And I know whenever I was speaking in the Committee on Emerging Issues, I didn't get asked any questions because we had so little time. So I was just thankful to be able to speak in front of them. But they were, talking about mental health within the trans community. And, that's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
It's totally heartbreaking because nobody wants to see suicides anywhere. But it's almost like it's a separate issue because sports isn't going to, it really doesn't have anything to do with sports, this is completely biology for me, biology 101, because talk about getting your head smashed in. You don't ever see, we didn't ever scrimmage the boys team. I didn't scrimmage the boys team in high school, whenever guys are probably smaller than they are in college.
Yeah.
You get to college and it's bigger, faster, stronger. And all you got to do is look in a weight room and see that on full display. But we never ever scrimmaged the boys team. We would have gotten annihilated and we would have gotten hurt. And so to now make it to where girls are going to be forced, unless we pass this legislation, to go up against that is just kind of insane to me. We don't even use the same size ball. So it's like, you can't have separate gender differences for even the sports and the rules and then make it co-ed.
So walk me through a little bit of the process that you're going through right now. I think you've built a really solid case for why this is an issue. This is stealing money. I'm going to say it that way. It is stealing money
And
from
opportunity.
girls, stealing opportunity. There is no reason to have a Title IX if we now have said there is no women's sports. We have two different categories of male sports. With one of those, there's a few girls participating in it, and they're getting their teeth knocked in. That is a very serious issue. We don't even need Title IX anymore. So that's foolishness, because it is an antiquated position that says there are real gender binaries. That's stupid.
Right.
So tell me about the process that you're going through right now, and even tell us what Save Girls Sports is doing, and even how we can begin to join some of that.
Right. So honestly, this kind of has snowballed a little bit. I would like to I say I'm a mom on a mission, because you can mess with me and I can deal. But if you mess with my kids, then that's a little bit different. So to me, I saw this as they're not going to have the same opportunity that I had as a kid. And I look back on the very first team that I played on. I was, I think, 6 years old, and I was playing. My mom looked everywhere for a girls' basketball team. Republic, Missouri wasn't quite as big. It was still a good-sized town. I think we were Class 3 at the time. But she couldn't find an all-girls team for me, so she found a boys' team, and I played on the boys' team, and that was pretty much a disaster. They didn't want me on their team. I really didn't want. I wanted to be on a girls' team. We just couldn't find any. So there was a lot of co-ed teams back in '89, but it was very clear to me, even as a 7-year-old, I need to play with girls. Because honestly, I've got video of my older brother yelling, pass my sister the ball, put her in the game. Like, it was a terrible experience. So once I got on a girls' team, I was like, okay, this is better. This is where I need to be. But and that's kind of how we've coached our own teams for our girls, and to see what they get out of it, just with teamwork. And you see kids that don't have confidence, that suddenly they'll see little wins, and maybe not even a win of a game, but being able to do something they couldn't do the last practice. So for me, this whole thing has kind of just snowballed into literally saving girls' sports, because once this floodgate opens, girls' sports will be gone. There won't be girls' sports anymore.
So the trans person is going to say, you've exaggerated that.
Yeah.
You have made something that's small into a big deal.
Right.
What is your response to that? And how do you combat that idea? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No,
but I know
I'm glad I'm getting some questions, because I was kind of hoping for some the day I was able to speak, in front of the Emerging Issues Committee, and didn't get any. So, a lot of the people that don't think that this is a big deal have never played sports. And it really frustrates me, because, it's hard for me to not engage with people on social media. I had a mom of daughters say, well, this doesn't bother me at all. And my girls don't play sports, so what's the big deal? And I'm like, well, just because it doesn't affect you doesn't mean it's not going to be affecting a niece or a cousin. It's going to affect someone you know. And it doesn't matter if your daughter is the star player. That's great. Maybe they won't be affected. Maybe they will. But as soon as we start on teams where you can be cut, volleyball, basketball, I don't know a lot of track teams that cut anybody, but
soccer.
Yeah, soccer. Those girls that are on the cusp of maybe not going to make the team, suddenly a transgender female comes in and makes the team. Well, they've just taken the opportunity away from a girl that now maybe she's played that sport her whole life. So it's not just going to affect girls that are really good.
So is there a law that says a male that identifies as a girl can't play male sports?
A male that identifies as a girl can't play male.
Biological male who identifies as a female, he can't play male sports anymore?
No. They can play male sports. So it's just now whatever they identify with is what they are allowed to play, thanks to President Biden's executive order.
Yeah.
And so that's why each state, and I wrote down all the different states that have this.
Share some of those with us.
I believe South Dakota and Mississippi have already passed things signed by their governors, but North Dakota, Idaho, Montana, Florida, Tennessee, Utah, Oklahoma, New Hampshire, of all places, South Carolina. So all of those states have representatives that are trying to move this legislation through. So what my husband and I went and spoke on was the House bill that is moving forward in Missouri. However, it doesn't address college. It doesn't address secondary. There's another one that I was just made aware of by Senator Mike Moon's office, and his is SB 503, I believe. It does, and it's called the Save Women Sports Act, and it's honestly the best of both worlds for me, because this is going to be voted on by the legislature.
Yeah.
The one that we actually testified for, it was supposed to be voted by them, and then it got changed kind of at the last minute into a joint resolution where it would be a vote by the people. So this Senate bill, honestly, may be a better shot for us. It does include college, which, I played at a private Christian university, but we played public institutions. So just because maybe SVU wouldn't recruit a transgender female that would be playing on my same team, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be going head to head with somebody the size of my husband, a 7-footer. So it affects you whether you're homeschooled, whether you go to a Christian, high school. It's going to affect everyone.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, like I said, we're talking about one little particular, right? So we're talking about sports.
Right.
We're not talking about the restroom issue, the locker room issue.
Right.
I guess some sort of, like hiring issues and stuff like that. So if they don't recognize it in sports, unfortunately, they're going to recognize it somewhere else. And then, so like I said, you're dealing with the small little window.
Exactly.
And because, you've played sports, you see the problems. And so you're speaking into this, you have a gift, you're speaking into it. But there is the bigger issue that we're speaking into. So, I would whenever I would have these conversations. Well, sports might not affect you, but remember, in sports, you do have showers, you do have bathrooms, you have this that are in common to other issues that will affect you.
Right.
And so if we allow this little thing here, then that's the toe in the door for then, well, you did this over here now, government.
You
let's
never
do
know what
this.
it'll lead to.
And so, I don't want to get into just a slippery slope to be a slippery slope. And that's what Dave was sort of mentioning there, are we blowing this up and out of proportion? But the question is, what have you seen in as far as the slippery slope that you could speak into? Right.
Well, I think, all over even in the Olympics, they have allowed some transgender females to compete.
Goodness.
Whenever they start telling me that, you can be, like, for instance, in Missouri, you can be on hormone therapy for, I believe it's a year, and then you are able to play. You have to be on a year. Well, my husband was 6'8" in 7th grade. So for people that say, oh, well, that doesn't negate what has happened up until that point. So it's not like you're getting hormones in the womb, and it still wouldn't change your biology. It's not going to change your chromosomes, hormones, everything else. But, for me, that just it doesn't change what has happened up until that point. So even the hormones, gender reassignment, whatever, you're still biologically male. No, it's not going to reverse you to where your lung size suddenly gets smaller, your heart gets smaller. It's just kind of a moot point for people whenever they start telling me, well, the hormones make all the difference. That's not really accurate.
So tell me a little bit about the criticism that you have received, because here's what is so crazy, how they've turned this into you're transphobic. People have been afraid to support this
Right.
bill, as you were sharing it before, because they don't want to be labeled as transphobic. But the reality is you're protecting your daughters.
Right.
What is the criticism that you're getting? I mean, is it
Right.
just, we're going to label you, we're going to throw an ad hominem at you, you're a transphobe, end of story, we don't need to talk to you? I mean, is that kind of
Right.
what you're getting?
Well, honestly, I'm kind of just a little tiny piece of this. And so I have received really nothing but huge amounts of support. And people that are like, thank you so much. I work in the public school. I'm not able to speak out, but I'm so thankful that there's people like you that are. So I have not, maybe the more vocal I become, maybe the more criticism I could receive. But
Be ready.
so far,
Yeah.
I know in general, these bills across the United States are being viewed as anti-trans. And like I've said earlier, I don't want to be anti-trans. I am pro-women, and that is what this is all about for me. So yeah, that's. I have not as of yet received criticism.
You certainly have feminist groups working with you, right? They want to protect women's sports. So the feminist group are right behind you. All those women's rights groups
Right.
are all behind you, aren't they?
The sad part about this, whenever we spoke in Jefferson City, you know, I was looking at the crowd of those on the emerging issues committee, and I thought, well, there's 4 women on here. Yeah, you know, I'm gonna have 4 women that are in my corner or whatever. And I quickly realized, wow, they are not. They may say they are feminists, but as far as protecting women and women's sports, they are not. They are completely against all of these bills that are being put forth,
Yeah.
which is very, very disheartening to me.
So you're really seeing, you know, is there a problem whenever you have, so we started with LGB, right? And that it was just LGB, and we didn't see a T for a long time. And then whenever you throw in the T to the mix, you're seeing it.
Right.
Now you have, so let's just take people. This is a bunch of people, and then now we're going
It was the gay rights
right.
movement at first.
Yeah.
Just so you
let's-
know.
Yeah. And so let's just take people here. Here's all people that exist. And then let's zero in on just women.
Mm-hmm.
And then now within what women, now you have women. I guess you can say white women, black women, Asian women. You have lesbian, white, black, Asian.
Right.
Now you have transgender, white, black. So now you're seeing the
Right.
fight, and now we're seeing that. Well, I'm, say, a black lesbian woman in sports, and I don't want this transgender issue. So now that we have the T
Right.
in the equation, now you're seeing that being disruptive, and so
Right.
we're seeing that we can't hold these things in the tension. So we can't, we try to hold things in tension and try to be inclusive and love one another by this way that the world wants us to love one another, but you're not seeing that being a practical
You
way
know,
to do things.
I whenever you're involved in women's sports, you're going to play with girls of all races, all creeds, whatever. Whenever, and I even at a Baptist school, I played with lesbians. It's just part of being into women's sports, honestly. But whenever we got out on the court, we had the same opportunity to train. You know, we have the same biology. And so I don't think there's even a unanimous voice within the LGBTQ community where they are for this, because you do have an advantage if you are biologically male versus whether you're a lesbian and you're playing a sport. That's a completely different subject, you know? So, I don't think there's a universal thought on this, but people are afraid to speak out about it for fear of being labeled as, you know, anti
So what you're
anything.
telling me there is that there are homosexual gay women who are probably for this, but they're not going to say anything because they're afraid of the culture saying, you transphobe.
Right.
Because that's one of the worst things that you can be now. Used to be, homophobe was the worst thing you could
Right.
be. Now it is transphobe.
Well, cancel culture is real. You know, it's everywhere. You can be canceled in a split second. So I think anyone is kind of apprehensive in this environment to come out strongly against or for anything for fear of being labeled. But yes, I believe there are homosexual, lesbian women that are not for this. I know there are some that, I've been told they're very vocal about it. There's a boxer that I was told about that is vocal about it. And I would think that that is one sport for sure where you could immediately see the biological differences quickly. So definitely something that it's affecting all women.
So tell me a little bit about Save Women's Sports. Tell me about the people who have begun to follow that. Tell me kind of your goals for that group, where you kind of headed with this.
Okay. So like I said, mom on a mission, don't really know what I'm doing other than that. I didn't know how to unite people. I knew that, man, every single person I talked to was like, well, yeah, we want this legislation. We have to have it. I figured it already was there. Like I said, it's kind of just something that's been flying under the radar. So I just started the Facebook group, and I think we're maybe up to like 1,600 members, something
Excellent.
like that. But basically as a way to get the word out of what is going on. And yes, it's happening in Missouri, and we need to protect ourselves from what the federal government is doing because, like I said, in one stroke of a pen, basically did away with girls' sports as we know it. Plus, Missouri was already allowing some of it to happen, and we just didn't know. So my goal is just to put pressure on representatives, senators to say, hey, listen, this is something that Missourians, I believe, overwhelmingly support.
Yeah.
Whether they're willing to go out on a limb and say we're absolutely supporting it or not, they would go to a ballot box and vote for it. So
are there any studies that have presented a case for the fact that a male does not have an advantage in women's sports, in competing against women? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist.
Me either.
That's why we have to appeal to the experts,
Right,
So is there, because, people show me the evidence or whatever. So is the other side presenting evidence?
They are presenting evidence based on what hormone therapy can do to a biological male, and once they get their testosterone level down, it's still higher than a woman's is at its height. So you're never going to get, from what I've read, a testosterone level that is as low as a female. But yes, I'm sure there are studies out there. The more research I've done on it, it's, like I said, a lot of it is coming from people that have never played sports. I found an attorney that is a Duke law professor she was a runner. And so you think, oh, Duke is going to be super liberal college or whatever. But she is absolutely helping all these different states try to push this legislation forward and she may be liberal, I have no idea, but she played sports and she understands, hey, whenever I was running track I can't remember where it was at an Ivy League school, she has firsthand knowledge. I mean, you're practicing at the same time as the guys sometimes. So
Yeah.
So I'm sure to answer your studies, I'm sure you could find a doctor out there somewhere that is going to tell you that, oh, it's equal once you adjust your hormone levels. However, like I said, that doesn't negate your body structure. It's not going
Bone density.
Yeah. So
they're still appealing to gender binaries. That's the absurdity of it. That you have to, if you do the hormones because they feel, though they are not, but if they feel that they are, they can then do what they need to do to try to get it down. So they're totally admitting gender binaries and the absolutes.
Right.
And then just going out of their way, as Romans 1:18 through 32 has stated, that we try to throw off all these things. We know that God exists. we are creation that declares his glory as well. And so they're just trying to figure out, it's not the fact that people are foolish as in they are stupid, because they're very intelligent, and they have to be super intelligent to try to deceive yourself that God doesn't exist and go through scientific stuff to try to suppress that knowledge and come up with something like, well, if you get the hormones down,
Right.
then, they're just almost like, oh, wait, I'm just saying gender binary, but that's the problem that, that we need to look at whenever they're arguing, taking this to the Senate and going against something like this.
Right.
And that being totally helpful.
Right. And my thing is, it's got to be facts over feeling, because you can feel a lot of different ways, but we've got to stick to the facts, which is at birth, male and female are different. And Title IX was supposed to protect women from those, from those differences, being able to have our own sports, being able to have equal amount of teams as what, guys teams have. So you would think that those protections would be in place, but it's all going to be challenged. And so I'm just trying to help Missouri, and I know there's a lot of good people that are doing the same thing, but we've got to protect our state.
So you've had a lot of responses when it comes to hashtag Save Girls Sports. Tell me a little bit, have you had college coaches jump on board? Have you had high school coaches jump on board? I mean, it would seem to me that for the integrity of their job, a college coach would really want to do something.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about those conversations that you've had.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't tell me specific names, but...
So whenever we went up and spoke, I was thinking, man, we're just little D2 athletes, there's got to be some women that are going to be speaking up here that have played at Mizzou or, bigger deals than what we are. And it was very disappointing to me because there was nobody there to speak. There was a older gentleman that was a track coach that spoke after me, and he did a good job, but I just feel like the fear from the idea of getting canceled, I think, has really, it's stifled and silenced a lot of people.
So Big Brother, to use a 1984 analogy, I was born in 84, so so I can use that.
Wait,
so
I thought you were younger than me? Wow, I'm an old man. Sorry.
That's okay. Hey, my birthday's April 9th, so, I'll be another year older. My wife... She's a year older than me. Don't tell anybody. Oh,
you're in trouble now. You're in trouble.
But 1984, Big Brother. People won't speak out because they don't want Big Brother to hear.
Right.
So you're telling me that people are self-moderating or self-silencing. Those who should be the biggest advocates are not doing that. For shame. If you are a Christian college coach,
yes,
for shame on you for not getting behind this. You should be sticking up, especially if you're a male, female college coach. You should be protecting young women. That is God's design. Yeah. And so I would just say straight up, call out if you know anyone who is in college coaching, specifically for females, you need to be getting on the phone and saying, get behind this movement. This is crazy. Yeah, I mean, I can't, I'm not trying, I don't know any of the coaches that you had at SPU, but I am appalled that there is not a volleyball coach who is on your side. There is not a basketball coach, an assistant basketball coach, or even one of the individuals who was a trainer who was on your side. This is crazy.
And I'll say, I do think a lot of people don't even know that it's going on, because I didn't know that it was going on. And so until I, heard about his executive order on day one, it was a wake-up call for me. Like, hey, if not me, then who? And I think a lot of us...
How we respond in the day of adversity. I'm sorry, but every college coach should be signing some petition to be with you. It's
I agree.
crazy.
And I've been trying... I'm a mom. I work full-time, so this is just something that I'm trying to help along here. But honestly, that's kind of my next goal, is to get more people to help get the word out and to speak out about it, because you're right. for sure Christian colleges, Christian high schools, grade schools, what you should be speaking out. You don't have to fear for your job. I mean, I get it whenever I have friends that are college coaches, high school coaches in the maybe public schools, or they work for a, liberal arts college, whatever. They fear for their jobs. And that's sad for me.
Because they want to stand for reality.
Right, right. And they see what it could do as a coach to females in sports. And like we said, it ends female sports. It's at that point, it's co-ed.
Yeah, it's either, a few people now at this time in history losing their jobs, standing up, or losing it altogether for a long, long time. And
and several of them have said, if this is the hill I have to die on and lose my job on, so be it. And I hate that that's even a reality, that they would have to, just for speaking out. But we're kind of at a crossroads where, like you said, if we don't, then you're not going to have anything to fight for anyway. Yeah,
and that's the big deal. And it's just one of those things for coaches that are Christians and all that kind of stuff. Like, we can go to that route, but we also can go to coaches as, like, say, for parents of kids that are in sports. We can try to see if we can talk to them, make a relationship, find out what their stance is. If their stance is for this, then go, how can we help you get for this? So it's one of those things that people can rally around coaches that go like, I want to speak up. I know I'm one single voice and I know that I can't go anywhere, but then again, we need to get numbers, and it's not necessarily mob rule. We don't have to push this thing through top down and hit somebody over the head with it, but we can be like, there are people, and this is like the issue is we're all fearing one another. Right. So we are all have some sort of phobia.
Right. And I think
and we are acting out of fear, but we need, especially as the church, we have the gospel, we have reality, and we have the word given to us, and we have the Holy Spirit behind us. And if, we're not to fear man, for one, who can hurt us, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't act like that. And so, Christians, we can sit and whine all day, but if we're not acting consistently because of what the gospel has said and standing up, like Daniel did, and like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did, we got to stand up, like ultimately, like Christ did to the leadership to save people. And he literally died on a hill.
And the reality is, I understand part of the reason why they're afraid to speak. I know I've been hard, but here's the issue. Did you have Dr. Derryberry for a few classes? Say, always talk about like Gravel Road High School or whatever. So I'm generally like Gravel Road Community College, right? So if you've got coach at private college, Gravel Road Private College, right? But we know that there's some little private colleges that, they've got very small students. They've got a few athletic, opportunities, right? Where I teach at Spurgeon College, right? We have a women's volleyball team and a women's soccer team, right? So of those sports, right, if you are a college like that and you're a coach who comes out and says, no, we demand that women be the only, biological women be the only ones who participate. But what's going to happen is they're going to be told by one of the organizations, you fire that coach because they're a transphobe, or we're not going to schedule you anymore.
Mm-hmm. It could easily happen.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
That's what ad hominem, illogical, emotive arguments do.
Right. And not only that, if it is not made to be basically where they can't play through this bill or through some similar legislation, then as soon as we were in the MIAA, and they were this is extremely tough conference for D2 in Missouri. If one of our opposing teams that we play would have had a transgender female and SBU wasn't going to do that, we're automatically at a disadvantage. Yeah. And that coach can't help that. So it's really, it just harms girls all the way around. And that's totally why I wanted to get involved.
Well, and then what's going to happen is people will say, who are rational, I don't want to see some guy beat up on some girls. I'm not going to that. Like, like if I'm
could.
at SBU, right? And
Right.
and I'm, I am an alumnus and I am a trustee there, right? So I get invited to go to games.
Right.
I don't go to that many of them, but
Oh,
last one I went
shame
to was
on
a
you.
girls' basketball game. By the way,
Okay,
that
good.
is.
I didn't get to go to
that
any
is
this
the
year,
last one that I
thanks to
went
COVID,
to. 2019, I went to a girls' basketball game,
Okay.
right? And so, if I know that there is 2 trans women on that team, I'm not gonna. Why do I want to go watch SBU get beat up on by 2 guys and 3 girls? I'm not going. So there's no sales for tickets. No sales for tickets. Guess who gets impacted by that? Coaches.
Right.
Right.
And there's definitely a trickle down effect in so many different ways.
So that kind of brings me to this component. What can our audience do, and what is it that you've been communicating on Save Girls Sports? Give us just the gambit of the easiest things that we can do to do the more big things that we can do. And we'll be happy if you give us a list. We will, if you type it up, we'll share it for a while on our pages.
Awesome. Well, I've been in touch with Senator Mike Moon and his office, and so his Senate Bill 503, I'm really watching closely, and right now it's awaiting a committee hearing. And so I don't know when that will be. I've always been told that if it doesn't happen before spring break, then sometimes the bill just dies. Well, I believe they're on spring break right now, and he's waiting on a committee hearing. So on the House side, that the joint resolution is now moved on to an admin and rules committee. And I am going to be putting out the emails of the committee chair and all of the members of that committee, because in order for it to get on the speaker's schedule, it has to pass through that rules committee. I should probably know a lot more about this, but I know that's where they're going to be picking it apart, changing the verbiage and all that stuff. So if they like the page, Save Girls Sports in Missouri, that's where I'm going to be having all the bullet points of email this person, this is what you need to tell. I mean, basically, we just have to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a million ways for a bill to die. And so there's not that many ways for a bill to get passed. So we've got to, basically, right now, the Democrats are working hard to cut any deal that they possibly can to kill this bill. And the only reasoning I can think of is just all of the ACLU, pro-trans groups. They all don't want this to happen. So I kind of feel like a little bitty person up against a huge organization. So the more people that can join that group, we can at least get the word out on, okay, here's who you need to call. Call your representative. Call this speaker. Get it on. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just get the word out. Tomorrow I will get the emails of all the people on the Rules Committee that we need to be emailing and calling to tell them, hey, listen, don't cut deals. We want this to move forward.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things. I'm glad you've mentioned Mike Moon, that you know him, that you've worked with him, because we've had him on the show about his abolition bill and all that kind of stuff. And so the cool thing is he actually got that in hearing. And Dave was there and present. So that the cool thing is like, that's a hard bill, hard bill to have heard.
Right.
That's right.
So there is hope for something like this to get heard on his end.
Right.
And, so, our listeners, here's another Mike Moon issue to pray for, to support, to write, again, like you can utilize the same sort of email that you would send for the abolition bill. But all you have to do is just replace it with SB 503. Look it up and support Mike Moon, and try to get your representatives to support him and stand with him on this too, because this is definitional, just like the abolition issue is definitional of just a human being in general. Defining it and being consistent with that definition. Well, whenever you have a definition of human also being male and female now, and now we're seeing that worked out even more, and getting to this truth again, to end up loving God, loving neighbor, they're both co-equal commands, so you can't really say the two greatest commands. It is the command of God and how that works out, how we can love our neighbors by again protecting them, like we've already talked about. Like there is equal outcomes that come out of, right, whenever you do separate men and women. There are good outcomes that you would see, right?
For
and
sure.
so and they've been working out that way. You are an example of it. You didn't have to compete with guys that could overtake you.
Thank
And then you
goodness.
ended up having scholarships, having the chance
Right.
to go to college, and that is a big issue for women's suffrage back in the day. Thank you, but again, women's suffrage,
Right.
and those women have an issue with a man dressing up and saying, I am a woman and competing here, and then take her scholarship away. So again, this is intersectionality
I would
devouring
say
itself. so.
any dad, any mom who has daughters should be concerned about this,
Yes.
because there will not be a place for women to participate in sports against women if something isn't done. That's sad. I one of my personal stories is I was definitely not a good athlete, but I was an okay high school baseball player. Now my sister she was given offers to just play community college
Right.
softball, but she was a good college or high school softball player, right? So we went in and we played just the regular, it wasn't a competitive league at all. It was just the, fun league that high school guys would play. Now I had played Legion baseball, I'd played high school baseball. I
Right.
was always okay at those things. Well, when I'd go and I'd play, just in the regular fun league, right? I was really good, right? And it'd always make me feel good. Well, my sister, who had been a good softball player, right? So I'm going to step in and I'm going to play with the boys. Garbage. And I love my sister. She was better than the bad kids, right? But she would tell you, right? Like it
Right.
was really hard. But if you've ever played slow pitch co-ed softball, which I've played, and I know you've probably played. I imagine your husband probably just knocks the ball a mile, right? You see, gals don't throw the ball like guys or hit the ball. But I'll tell you, it's not that they don't do good. It's just that God made us different. And
there's nothing wrong
you
with
get
that.
a beautiful picture of that.
Right.
I mean, a beautiful picture of that. It's very, very different. And that's not to say, oh my gosh, those girls can't play. No, I played with some great gals. But it's different because God created us for different purposes.
Yeah.
Right. I was talking to a friend of mine that she also played D2, and we were kind of laughing about the fact, I mentioned it earlier to you, that we could go, our coaches could pick up basically 5 guys out of the locker room at our college and bring them in to run, the plays of whoever we were playing. And just,
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys they're athletic, but they weren't like on a scholarship or anything, just regular guys, and maybe played in the rec league at SVU, but they would run plays against us, and they gave a pretty good fight. So
Yeah.
that was just 5 random guys that we brought in to play against us for a free t-shirt, and they could compete. So, I mean, there's a difference.
Yeah.
And whenever we were speaking at that emerging issues, a couple of the people after me apparently said something like, well, my wife could beat me in basketball any day. Well, we're not comparing apples to apples.
My wife could beat me too. My 15-year-old daughter might be able to beat me. 'Cause
Right.
she's taller than me.
Right. So,
Not a big accomplishment though to be taller than me.
Right. So anyway, there's definitely a difference, because I don't think you could go in and pick 5 girls out of the weight room and put them up against the boys team and have a competitive game like what we could.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a clear difference. And I think any female athlete would be fooling herself if she thought that there wasn't. So
Yeah, it's really awesome to live in the gospel that says that these differences that we find in reality are okay,
Right.
and that we can view them as gifts and as how we can actually come together in unity. in the diversity, and that's the main issue. And it's just that it's not their unity; it's a derivative unity that's embedded in the world that they hate, because that means they'd have to be subject to God and not be building their own kingdom. And so, it's just wonderful. But I guess before I can continue talking, because I know where I'm going, I want you to start speaking.
No, go for it.
I was just going to get to the end or whatever, because I think
go for it. I just wanted to say I'm really grateful for you standing up on this, and you are welcome to use our platform in any way that you can. If you want to call it and give us a development on it. And we've already said we want to work with you to put forward a resolution for the Missouri Baptist Convention. In fact, I don't know what the Southern Baptist Convention's resolutions committee is, but we would really like to work with you. I don't know if you're familiar with, we were at SBU with Dr. Andrew Walker, who works on the ARLC. I'm going to contact him because I think this is something that the Southern Baptist, as a convention, we still might have time to get a resolution to them. I've got to check the dates, but this is something that our convention needs to put forward. And so we want to help in that however we can. I will look up when the resolutions are due here really shortly, because I think that it's certainly something worth getting together.
Yes, because the more voices we have to speak on this issue, we can come together and rally around. That's the big issue. We don't need to be handing these off to just experts. We live in a culture, unfortunately, even in our church communities, we've left the gospel to the professionals and haven't preached the gospel ourselves and been the disciple-making disciples who make disciples, right? And we've left it up to our pastors to preach the gospel on Sundays. We bring our friends, but I think God is showing that through even this issue that we've got to be the priesthood of believers and speak the truth, because the whole church is the pillar and buttress of truth. And so, we've got to be that way. We've got to be the people, and because we are God's people, so we have power. We can do it, and we don't have to leave it up to professionals. But we've left it up to state professionals so long, and look what's happened. We can't let them do that. They're not designed for that. They're not ordained for that, and it's okay. And they can take a little humble pie, lower themselves, and we can run this thing the way God has intended. Individuals, families, churches, and governments to all operate in his kingdom.
Unfortunately, the resolutions committee is closed for the SBC. Sorry.
It's something that we can continue, but we need to stand up as Missouri Baptist, as Southern Baptist. Really, this should cross all denominational lines if you are biblical. I mean, there's definitely some unbiblical churches out there, and that would totally be against you.
Yes, I'm sure.
But we will stand with you even in that, whenever they probably call you not a Christian for your bigotry. We will stand up for you on that as well. So
this is for anyone that loves a female, if you have a mom, if you have a grandma, a granddaughter, niece, it's, to me, it's something that, everyone should be for.
Yeah, women fought so long for suffrage, and now we're seeing it destroyed by guess what? Men. So
and some women though too is the disheartening part. Yeah, unfortunately.
I'll go ahead and say that the women's will be more infiltrated with men than the men being infiltrated with women. But time will only tell on that. I'm not putting a date on it. I'm not saying that's official, but that's just my opinion. I'll put it out there. And by the time
if you notice, we don't have any cases of a female athlete, a biologically female athlete, going into a male sport and dominating it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah.
And it could happen. Still doesn't break anything. Yeah. It doesn't ruin our argument at all. Yeah. So, but yeah. Any guys, thank you guys for being on with us. I know that live for the podcast people, we did this as the second show of the day. So we thank the live cast people for watching and hanging out with us for at least 2 hours today. And for you guys that listen to the podcast, thank you so much for supporting this. Seriously, Mike Moon, he's got SB 391, which is the abolition thing. Now you know that he's got SB 503. Also, Save Girls Sports. Support Jenny here, and let's rally behind her. Let's find ways to get to our coaches and find out who's on our side and support them. Let's love our neighbors. And I mean, most of all, loving God, but loving neighbor as well underneath the lordship of Jesus Christ. And let's move this forward to protect our women. So with that said, this is the Tag Your It podcast. I am Ray Ray.
I am Dave.
Jenny.
And Zoe.
Gloria.
What?
Say Gloria.
Gloria.